Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Robotech.
Come on now and set sail for the future. Fly in the sky, oh, the lava.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cellcast.
The animated series.
Thank you. I'm sorry. The animated series. Joining me today is a man apparently with a faulty memory. No, I'm not going to say that.
Ow! He has ADHD. Be nice.
I know. When does that happen?
Obviously, you forgot.
Apparently. Anyway, I did get a concussion today, so I was just saying, a slight concussion.
Oh, the concussion
not hurt
excuse, a
yourself.
likely
I'm
story.
not. Okay. Joining me today is a man who does not want his bones drank. Welcome, Jacob.
No thanks. Little cute little creature, but no, stay away from me, devil. Stay away from me. Why, thank you. Let me introduce our co-host, a man who, oh boy, this is going to be a fun season. Welcome, Drew.
Oh, I am looking forward to this season because I actually got a glimpse at some of the episode names, and let's say our favorite office assistant is coming back.
Oh boy,
You know who I mean.
I think I know.
Also joining us on this episode is the curator of the Monster on Film Vault and his first trip through the lower decks here on the show. Welcome, Nate.
Hello. This is going to be interesting, but I always try to take opportunities to talk about one of the other things I love dearly besides kaiju, Star Trek, because Star Trek
Yes.
was my first fandom.
Same here.
My first.
And
Somehow I doubt it, Jimmy.
yes, Jimmy is here too.
Yes.
You sound disappointed.
No, I'm not disappointed. It's just I know he's a bigger Star Wars fan than a Star Trek fan.
Well, for reasons.
Yes. So you haven't watched, outside of the crossover episode with Strange New Worlds, you've not watched any lower decks before this.
Not full episodes. I've seen some clips online and things like that. And I will admit, for one thing, there's just been way too much Star Trek getting made the last few years. We went from nothing other than some movies here and there and any of the, comics and novels and things that they were doing, but not everybody keeps up with those two. There's just way too much. Now we have like 4 Star Trek shows on at the same time. Like, slow down, Paramount. Jeez, some of us have lives and not enough money to pay for all of this crap. Anyway, so I've not partaken of lower decks, like you said, other than that crossover, because I've been keeping up with Strange New Worlds, and it's been largely because I honestly thought I would hate the show because I don't like Rick and Morty, and it's the same guys who did Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Rick and Morty has never appealed to me.
That's very fair because that was actually my worry when the show got announced, and the only reason I jumped straight into it is because I already had Paramount Plus, so it wasn't a big deal for me to watch it, and we kind of had already talked about reviewing it on the show, so.
Right.
I was just like, well, if I hate this, at least I have a good reason to hate it.
I will tell you my expectation going into this, and I don't think it was 100% assuaged because this is season 4, so I could be, could be coming in on one of the better episodes because they've had several seasons to refine things. my concern has been, because I've heard you and other people talk about, it's like, oh, the people who made this are clearly Star Trek fans. I was like, yeah, but throwing a bunch of references in to including some deep cuts to prove that you've seen a lot of Star Trek and you know a lot of things, just because you know about it doesn't mean you necessarily understand it. You can love it, but
Yeah.
not necessarily understand it. And that has been my key concern, because I am going to be much less impressed with having a bunch of deep cut references that, yeah, someone like me is going to get, compared to actually understanding the thing. Do you
Right.
understand Star Trek? I need to know that you understand Star Trek. I don't care if you've seen all 800 or whatever. I think it's 900 episodes from every show 5 times.
Last
now.
count I heard was 850.
Yeah, I don't care if you've seen all of those 5 times right now and you can rattle them off by memory. I need to know you understand what Star Trek is.
So I'm going to go ahead and tell you what my still, even though the crossover kind of messed with this a little, but my fan theory as to how this works is that this is not technically what happens in canon, but this is like a holo novel based on their officers' logs.
That's right.
That this is kind of it. That's why it's so a little crazy.
So basically, the finale of Enterprise.
Kinda, except better.
I would be a little bit more willing
Because
to go with
not
that.
like
That's
pathos of characters.
Yeah, because that's the other thing, is that this, if this was just a non-canon parody of Star Trek, I would be able to accept it more easily, but this is supposed to be canon.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because the Strange New Worlds kind of wrecks my theory a little bit, that crossover does, because they're acting like that in what's supposed to be the real world. So
yeah, well, what's funny is the writers of Strange New Worlds are, I'm guessing probably some of the Lower Decks people are probably helping them out with this. Obviously, they clearly are aware enough to know that that Lower Decks is so different compared to the rest of Star Trek that the Strange New Worlds characters like, what's wrong with these people?
Well, I do know that Mike McKay, the showrunner for Lower Decks, did help with the Strange New Worlds crossover to help keep the dialogue as accurate to Lower Decks when it needed to be. So,
and I give them credit. The voice actors actually played their characters in live action.
Right. So anyway, I just wanted to get that base down there so that we were all on the same page before we go into 2 of the more crazy episodes, I think, on this one so far. The first one we're reviewing tonight is Two-Vix, spelled Twovix.
That's a reference.
Yeah, which first aired September 7th, 2023, directed by Barry J. Kelly and Jason Zurich, and written by Mike McKayen. This is the Voyager centric episode, much like the Deep Space Nine centric episode we got last season. In this episode, the Cerritos ensigns must assist a caretaker on the voyage of a historically significant starship.
I really thought we were going to literally have the caretaker aliens when I read that. Because I figured, because I knew from the titles, like, this is going to be a Voyager episode, isn't it?
Oh, yes. It's painfully a Voyager episode. Since this is the first episode of season 4, I do want to go ahead and go through all of the cast this time. Tawny Newsome is playing Beckett Mariner. Jack Quaid as Brad Boimler. Noel Wells as Devon Attendee. Eugene Cordero as Sam Rutherford. Dawn Lewis as Carol Freeman. Jerry O'Connell as Jack Ransom. Fred Tatasciore as Shax. And Gillian Vigman as Ta'ana. Also in this episode, we had John Curry reprising his role as Ma'a, the Klingon captain from the Wedge Dudge episode.
That's right.
Nolan North is playing Lars Lundy, the bartender.
Oh, okay.
In this. Andy Richter is playing Beljo Tweakle, the caretaker.
Okay.
Gabrielle Ruiz has come back for to play T'Lyn, since she's apparently now going to be a major cast member, member on the show.
Yeah.
Paul Scheer playing Andy Billups, of course. Carl Tart as Kayshawn. Paul F. Tompkins as Miglimo, and Kari Walgreen as Kaylor. I believe she was one of the female Klingon at the very end. Getting into the trivia for this, yes, this is a Star Trek Voyager episode. For those who don't know about Star Trek Voyager, much like my co-host here,
I know very little of it.
Voyager is a show about the Starship Voyager that gets lost in the Delta Quadrant as it was chasing a Maquis ship through the Badlands named the Valjean. The Maquis were a Federation terrorist group. Yeah, the Federation had a terrorist group in Deep Space Nine. Ain't that fun?
Yeah.
It gets hurled into the Delta Quadrant of the galaxy by being known as the Caretaker, who died before he could send them back. And Voyager had to travel 70,000 light years to get back home. Along the way, the Voyager and Maquis crew have to learn to work together. They also meet a couple of aliens that they bring along with them, namely Neelix, a Talaxian, and Kess, an Ocampan. Plus, of course, since this is the Delta Quadrant, they do run into the Borg, and they meet up with, and they bring aboard a rescued Borg drone that used to be human named 7 of 9. Spoiler alert, of course, the show does make it back. The Voyager does eventually make it back home, crippling the Borg in the process.
Yes.
Supposedly.
Well,
Allegedly.
I mean, the way it looked at Picard season 3,
Yeah, but Picard season 2.
that's a
makes it
different
weird.
Borg.
It
That's
is
the
so
Borg
weird.
cooperative.
It is so weird. I don't
Moving
understand. Yeah.
The title of this episode actually comes from the title of a Voyager episode, Two-Vix, which I'll get into more here in a minute. Voyager has been turned into museum ship in this episode. Sometime after, it will be included in the Fleet Museum seen in Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 6, The Bounty. Boimler is worried about the upcoming promotions, as he's afraid it'll be a repeat of his past promotion in the Season 1, Episode 10, No Small Parts, which he was also on the Titan after that point on Season 2, Episode 1, Strange Energies, and Episode 2, Kayshawn, His Eyes Open. And he was not exactly happy on that ship, and Mariner did not forgive him for at least a couple episodes for leaving.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
I was
To
going
Lynn
to
fully-
say, I have opinions about Mariner.
Yeah. Talyn fully joins the cast after her appearance in Season 2, Episode 9, Wedge Dudge, and Season 3, Episode 10, The Stars at Night. Ma'a, the Klingon protagonist from Wedge Dudge, meets his end, unfortunately, at the end of this episode to the mysterious probe that's obviously going to be this season's big bad. You can see the celestial koala now in the clouds of the Star Trek franchise title card for Lower Decks.
Yeah.
That's a fun thing. Do you know what I'm talking about there with the celestial koala, Nathan?
No.
Sad. Because it was actually in the Lower Decks. It was actually in the crossover opening sequence too.
And the villain from Star Trek 4.
Yeah, well, I'll get into that.
Whoa.
I am
They've
getting
established
to
who
that.
sent this show established who sent the dang Tootsie Roll from outer space.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
No. It's in the opening credits.
I'll get to that
Well,
next.
okay,
That was
I
actually my next
recognize-
thing.
Okay.
The opening credits battle that changes every season to get more and more complicated.
Yes.
Has added 2 more things, including a Klingon bird of prey chasing another ship through the scene, and the Silver Burrito whale probe from Star Trek 4 is there, among, of course, the Packlet ships, the Borg cube, Romulan warbird, and crystalline entity.
Yeah, those all those I recognize.
Yeah, but yeah, the whale probe was there too, with its sound effects.
Yep.
I saw that. I was like, what? That was the new
That thing's sound effect
Yeah,
haunted my dreams as a child.
but yeah, that's the thing with the opening credits for each season of the show is that particular shot. All the other ones are the same every time, but that shot gets crazier and crazier every season. Bello Tweakle is the caretaker of Voyager in this, is a Rigelian. He was brought, the Voyager was brought to the Delta Quadrant by being known as the caretaker, as I mentioned before, who was watching over a species called the Ocampa from his array, which just kind of looked a little bit like the caretaker array, but not quite. The Brill cheese from the Voyager episode Learning Curve is here. The cheese was created by Neelix in response to Ensign Ashmore's request for to make macaroni and cheese. The bacterial cultures, however, he used to make the cheese accidentally infected the ship's bioneural gel packs, causing malfunctions across the ship, which caused Chief Engineer B'Elanna Torres to say one of the most surreal but memorable lines of Star Trek. Get the cheese to sick bay. The macrovirus returns after surviving 8 years behind a panel after its first appearance in the episode Macrocosm, and it was last seen in the Voyager episode Shattered. Mariner mentions that Pike thing we aren't supposed to talk about, referring to their adventures in the Strange New Worlds episode, Those Old Scientists, which took place between season 3, episode 6, Here All Trust Nothing, which was the DS9 episode, and episode 9, Trusted Sources, which began the season finale. There are animatronic trans-warp salamanders seen aboard the ship. One of the weirdest episodes of Voyager, where Tom Paris and Captain Janeway somehow made it past warp 10, which for some reason turned them into these weird salamander creatures.
I've heard of this.
Whoever wrote that needs to rewrite it to be one of the worst episodes of Star Trek ever.
I don't know. Spock's brain, I think, is still worse.
It's at least the worst episode of Voyager, and it's in the top 10 worst episodes of the franchise, at least before the new stuff.
But that episode's name was Threshold.
Threshold, yeah, that is an infamous episode in the Star Trek fandom. Like,
yes,
it's like at least Spock's brain is so bad it's good. Threshold is just
weird.
It's just a pile of what the henshin. It's just what the furbus. It's just.
Also, we get a hologram of Dr. Chaotica, a holographic villainous character based off Ming the Merciless from Flash Gordon.
Oh, that makes sense.
He is Tom a holodeck program. He's from a holodeck program of Tom Paris's called The Adventures of Captain Proton, and he appeared in the episodes Night, Shattered, and of course, Bride of Chaotica.
Yeah, because it was an homage to Flash Gordon.
Yes.
I actually like those episodes. I thought
those are fun episodes. Yeah. Michael Sullivan from the holodeck program Paris 042 is seen. Paris 042 was an authentic recreation of an Irish settlement called Fairhaven. Michael Sullivan was the owner of a pub in that program who, I am not kidding here, Captain Janeway fell in love with, to the point where she in order so she could continue the relationship, deleted his wife.
I've heard of this too.
Janeway does a lot of very questionable things.
Yeah, so I keep hearing. There again, I haven't seen Voyager. I've heard of Voyager.
He is seen in the episodes Fairhaven and Spirit Folk. The clown from the episode The Thaw is also here. He was the holographic manifestation of fear of 5 individuals who were linked together in a neural network to keep their brains active while in stasis for 15 years, till they could be rescued on the coal settlement, a planet Voyager found back in season 2. And since this was a hologram on a planet and not on Voyager, he really shouldn't actually be here, which Mariner actually brings up.
But he's a very memorable villain.
He is, but it's kind of weird that he's here.
Yeah.
One of the macroviruses has Harry Klim's clarinet stuck in it.
Okay, I was wondering, like, what clarinet is this?
Yeah, that was
instruments.
That was Ensign Harry Kim's. Being Two-Vix in this episode refers to the transporter malfunction first seen in the Voyager episode Two-Vix, where Tuvok and Neelix get merged into one being named Two-Vix due to a transporter malfunction involving a Delta Quadrant Orchid that Tuvok was beaming up with. In this episode, the following people get Two-Vixed: Ta'ana and Billups becoming Tillups, Captain Freeman and Counselor Migley-Mo becoming Frigleyman, Shax and Barnes becoming Shabarnes, Bartender Hannes and Chief Lundy becoming Chondas, Steve Stevens and Matt the Whale becoming Shwale Shwalens. Yes, because beluga whales are actually crew members on the ship now because they actually had the guts to show cetacean ops, which has been in like technical manuals for years on Star Trek, but they never could show it. And lastly, at the end of the episode, Mariner, Boimler, Tendi, and T'Len get promoted to Lieutenant Junior grade. This is interesting in the Voyager episode because in all 7 years on Voyager, Harry Kim never got promoted away from Ensign.
That's because that show secretly hated Harry Kim.
Yes. Poor Harry Kim. What else? Nate, what's your thoughts on this episode coming into this blind, basically?
Okay. Again, I give them credit. They know a lot of things about Star Trek. I will say this, and here's the surprising part. I ended up liking these 2 episodes more than I thought. I really thought I was going to hate this show.
Mm-hmm.
I even told you guys when I was watching the crossover, I said, okay, Boimler grew on me, took a little bit. Boimler grew on me because you see the other characters, but it's mostly Boimler and Mariner. And I said, like, I can't stand Mariner. And to a certain extent,
Mariner's
I
got
still
a little
can't.
too much Annie in her.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, I still can't really stand Mariner, but I will say I appreciate how in the second episode she got dressed down pretty hard.
Yeah.
So I like that. And I will admit, they actually humanize her in this. She actually cares about her friends. And she's like, yeah, I put you up. I actually recommended you for promotion and things like that. So like,
I will
okay.
say she has been doing that from the beginning, but she has a bad tendency to haze a lot.
Yeah. So I ended up not hating Mariner in this, and I thought I was going to hate Mariner. She's still far from being anywhere close to a favorite Star Trek character for me.
She's
and
not
yeah,
mine,
she's got
but
a little bit of Annie in her, but weirdly enough, she's not as insufferable as Annie.
I will say this:
she can be in some scenes.
She's a lot better character than Michael Burnham.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah.
That is saying a lot. So I will. So that's kind of my initial thing. The other characters I hadn't spent as much time with. I was surprised how well written the Vulcan was. They actually found a way to write a Vulcan properly and make her funny.
Yeah, T'Lyn has only appeared in 2 other episodes before this, as obviously a character they were bringing in. In fact, her second appearance was her finally getting to the Cerritos, and the other time she was on a Vulcan ship and she was transferred because she was too upbeat and emotional.
Yeah.
Right.
She was trying to do too many illogical things,
which is funny.
Yeah.
And I will admit the other characters they eventually grew on me. They didn't really grate on me, but I do have to get used to the fact that this is supposed to be an over-the-top comedy that's set in the Star Trek universe, because there were points where I'm like, how did these people get out of the academy? How did these people get into the academy?
Yeah.
And which is funny because
why I have to approach this as we're seeing a hollow novel.
Right. Well, but the
thing, events.
But the interesting thing is that the initial idea for this show, something like it has been bandied about for a long time. You know, a show focused on the lower lower ranked officers.
There's even an episode of TNG
on a
with
starship.
that idea.
Huh?
There's even an episode of TNG that does.
Yeah,
that.
that's where the initial inspiration came from, and it was actually called Lower Decks.
Yeah,
and obviously that was TNG, and it was. I remember being a lighter, more humorous episode, but it wasn't this nutty. And so I learned to appreciate the characters. They felt more authentic than I was expecting them to be. I was expecting it was just going to be a lot of really dumb jokes and borderline nihilistic or something like that, because that's how Rick and Morty is.
Yeah.
And it ended up not being that way at all. These characters, I could tell, genuinely cared about each other. And so I took their relationship seriously, even though they're clearly exaggerated. I mean, like the captain, was it Ransom, right?
No, that's Freeman.
That's Freeman. No, I'm talking about the first officer then.
That's Ransom.
He is about as close to being what is his name?
He's Hyper Riker.
No, not Riker. The guy from Futurama.
I know who you're talking
Zach
about.
Brannigan. He's about as he's almost Zach Brannigan. Like, he is as close to being Zach Brannigan before going full tilt parody, because Zach Brannigan is a parody.
Yeah.
He's perilously close to that, but thankfully you don't quite cross the line. So I give them credit, but I could be. This is the start of season 4. They might, as far as I know, they've had 3 seasons to refine this, and I might try going back to watch season 1 and hate the show. So
season 1, I will say this about season 1 is they got out as much jokes as they thought they could get out of this. They were not really thinking of a story going forward, and they have had to fix some stuff after that to make it still be continuous. Because I mean, the only real big thing, and you probably didn't catch this, is that Mariner is actually Freeman's daughter, and that's
No, I
was
didn't
a,
catch that.
that was a secret throughout most of the first season
Yeah.
that only a couple people in the audience knew, and that was kind of how that whole season 1 went down. And then they had to figure out how to keep the show going because it was popular enough. It
Uh-huh.
kept going.
Right.
So it's really not until like halfway through season 2 I feel the show really gets going real good. But there's
Which
still a lot of good stuff in season 1 because it's like, oh, now we're gonna have our episode on our TOS episode on the planet where we've caused so many issues and we've got we're being attacked by spears despite the fact we're in a futuristic civilization. Oh, we gotta have the episode where we make fun of every single Star Trek movie, and they do.
Mhm.
And they do actually do that twice, and I think the first one was better. But it's, I don't know, to me I've been enjoying the show just because I've had to learn not to take this one seriously and just have fun with it.
Right. Well, like I said, they know to take at least the character relationship seriously.
Yeah.
Because
there
I'm
from the
not gonna,
beginning.
because if it's just zany and nothing really matters. I mean, even the Matt Groening and the guys who started The Simpsons and now they've revived
Mhm.
Futurama again. They know well enough to know that as zany as they're gonna be, they have to take the character relation seriously, or else people are not going to be invested. So I give them credit there. The thing that was probably most interesting for me as a fan in this, other than the fact obviously it's a massive Voyager tribute.
Yes, this was the Voyager tribute episode.
Yeah, is the fact that they really zeroed in on that one particular episode that has become weirdly controversial. Like, this is a point of contention, but that I see people debate about in Star Trek fandom, which is the whole Janeway killed Two-Vix thing because he said, I don't want to be separated.
But that is kind of a Kobayashi Maru scenario. You were wrong no matter which option you chose.
Right.
You either kill 2 people to let this one person live, or kill the one person to let the 2 people live.
Right.
I mean, I don't have it's not a clear-cut episode anyway.
No, which I think which was by design. And even though I don't feel like the writing in Voyager was up to snuff, especially against DS9, because DS9 and it were on at the same time. It wasn't close to DS9. And I never felt like Voyager
a lot more lighthearted throughout most of its run, and it was
compared to DS9,
it ended up feeling shallower for the most part.
Yeah, compared to DS9 for sure, but it never fully lived up to its potential for me personally. And I have some issues with Janeway as a captain, which gets me into arguments with a friend of mine who just loves Janeway, and I'm like, Janeway's got some serious problems, man. But regardless, they really zero in on that, and it was interesting. They played it for laughs because they're like, "Oh, Janeway solved this problem because we got people getting Two-Vix now. Well, Janeway solved this problem. How did she do it?" And then they find out that
she murdered a guy.
She quote unquote murdered him, and they're like, "We can't do that." And then I will admit the resolution when they do the ridiculous thing at the end where they just combine all of them into one big meatball, as they put it. They just like, oh, it's not sentient, so I don't have any moral quandaries with this. I'm like, okay, that's a little bit of a scapegoat there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
that's a little bit of an easy out, but okay, whatever. You have to build up to the joke. The cat doctor, I think they go a little far with the swearing. With I was like, I get it. You're trying to do the Dr. McCoy thing, but even farther. And I think, like, guys, you're going a little excessive with this. But I have issues with strong profanity in Star Trek.
Yeah, and that's just something that's gotten worse and worse over the years.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a little too much. That's probably, out of all of the Rick and Morty isms that are in the show, that's probably the one that annoyed me the most, because, and I normally think that censored profanity is funny, but I'm just reticent to it being in Star Trek unless it's a time travel episode to present day, and then then you can it would actually make sense there. And in the case of Star Trek 4, they used it for humor. Because they don't know how to use it properly. But yeah, so like I said, I ended up enjoying it more than I thought it would. I liked all of the Voyager references. I was catching most of them, and it was interesting to see what has become of the Voyager now. I forgot that Lower Decks is set before Picard season 3, and Voyager is in the Fleet Museum.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, the way this timetable works out is this is actually 3 years after Nemesis.
okay.
Just so you're aware.
Okay, which makes sense because they're still talking about Romulus like it still exists. I'm like, I thought it got blown up.
Yeah, Romulus still exists, and they are actually doing a lot better job of setting up AIs are evil. They're doing a lot better job of setting that up than Picard did. Because there's plenty of evil AIs in this show, including, like I said earlier, our favorite office assistant. Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Apparently, I'm a little unaware of that. And
there is a character in season 1 called Badgie that.
I know about Badgie.
Yeah, that's who I'm referring to as our
Badgie.
favorite office assistant because
Yeah,
I kind of
know
think
about
of him as
Badgie.
evil
Now-
Clippy.
Now, the interesting thing I will say in this one that given that it's a comedy, it would make sense, and I ended up appreciating was how them getting promoted actually causes character conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
this
they're
is
like,
not
well,
the
we're not
first
Lower
time
Decks
Mariners
anymore.
This is not the first time Mariner's actually been promoted because once she was promoted to try and get her off the ship because they knew she liked being in Lower Decks, which was weird.
Yeah.
And then, like I said earlier,
It makes sense for her
Boimler's
character.
was promoted to the Titan on Riker's ship for
Right.
3 episodes.
Right. No, it makes sense for Mariner. I figured out very quickly Mariner just wants to stay in Ensign so she can be lazy. She wants to be in Starfleet, but she wants to be lazy.
It's more complicated than that.
Oh.
You just can't really tell it in this episode. If you go in all the way back from the beginning, you can tell she's kind of a true believer, but she's been kind of jaded by the politics in Starfleet, especially after the Dominion War. So she's kind of rebelling.
Oh, okay.
Because her mother is the captain of the Cerritos and her father is an admiral.
Yeah.
So,
but also it's more really like sometimes she's more like, oh, I love Starfleet, then it's I hate Starfleet.
She doesn't hate Starfleet. She just rebels and be angsty every once in a while.
Right.
Okay. Then
if you're
obviously
talking about
there's-
the time where she left Starfleet, that was literally like Ahsoka at the end of. Well, you haven't seen that. Never mind.
Well, I know what happens in the episode. That episode.
It's more like she
Anyway,
felt betrayed, and it's
Yeah.
like
right.
forget all these
Anyway,
people.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I did appreciate that it's not she's not the one fixing the problem. She's she encourages Boimler, and Boimler is the one
Yeah,
who
I
figures
enjoyed
out how to
that
fix
element
how to fix the problem. Because at first in the crossover, I wasn't sure what to think of Boimler. I thought Boimler was honestly not so much annoying like Mariner, but I'm just like, I don't really necessarily like him because he's just kind of a cowardly nerd. But that's the whole point, is he's learning how not to be that.
Yeah.
And he gets rewarded for that here, and the other characters get promoted, which then they're like, how are we going to see each other? And then that actually creates some nice character conflict and interaction, but we'll talk about that
Especially
more
in the
second
next
episode.
episode.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, and then they actually use that to create a funny situation with Mariner and the first officer in the next episode. But
Yeah. We'll get to that here in a minute.
yeah, but like I said, overall, as a first full episode of Lower Decks, like I said, liked it more than I was expecting. And the references, even though they did come fast and furious, they were not overwhelming. And I feel like I have been talking a lot.
It is Jacob's turn to talk because he's the non-Trekkie in this group who I have forced to watch the show and got him to enjoy it.
It's against my will.
Yeah, no one else is going to get that.
But it's not,
joke.
but it isn't a method of torture like the North Korean Titanic movie.
Yes, that's true. So, Jacob, what are your thoughts on this episode?
I enjoyed it. I was pleasantly surprised with this episode because there'd be like, it's a Voyager episode. It's got so many references that went straight over my head. I was like, oh, okay. I know it's going to get explained because this is Drew.
I did spend more time on these notes than I did on the
He
X-Men.
does. And then I'd be like, I knew that Nate was a Star Trek fan. I was like, okay, so we're going to get more of that. Okay. So I watched it. I'm like, oh, okay, because I keep thinking, okay, Mariner, what are you going to do now? I'd be like, how are you going to make this? How are you going to make this scene worse? But she doesn't. I was pleasantly surprised. And the fact to be like it wasn't Mariner like self-destruct, like being self-destructive in some capacity. That's the next episode. But it was more of like she's trying to help Boimler in a way, and I was like, wow, okay, this is different. And then you get like Boimler be like, obviously be like he's kind of goofed up, and he's trying to make almost repentance in a way of trying to correct the mistake. And it's a really good Boimler episode, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, there again, I have never been the hugest fan of not Boimler, but Mariner. But be like, she's starting to grow on me a little bit. But I enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. There again, there was a lot of the references went straight over my head. And then you get this mysterious probe character who's wiping
we
out.
Still don't know what's going on with that thing.
Yeah, me either.
We won't. I have a feeling we won't know for a while what's going on with that thing.
I do have to say the caricatures of both the Klingons at the end of this and the Romulans at the beginning of the next episode did make me laugh, because I'm like, okay, you really got it down.
I am sad that the Klingon from that episode from before, he bites it in this one when they blow up his ship, because I really liked that character in that episode.
I thought it was funny that the two Klingons have a debate over whether or not a spear is dishonorable.
Right.
I'm like, okay, that actually does sound like a conversation some Klingons would have, but also, why do you think it's dishonorable? How is your logic doesn't quite make sense.
Than a disruptor or a cloaking device, which is always the thing that's weirded me out about a Klingon ships, is they have cloaking devices, because I think that would be dishonorable.
Well, the funny thing is that if you look at the Klingons and the Romulans in TOS compared to every other show after that, it's like they flip-flopped, because the Romulans were supposed to be honorable and the Klingons were supposed to be using subterfuge, and and then and once you get past TOS, suddenly they flip-flop it, and then the Romulans are the dishonorable ones who use subterfuge and any means necessary. No underhanded, no deed is too underhanded, and the Klingons are all about honor.
Well, it's weird, because like before TNG, the Romulans were basically the Russians and the Klingons were the Chinese, and then they switched. Which is why,
because the Klingons were modeled heavily. The Klingons were in TOS were modeled heavily after Mongol hordes.
Yes, and they still have the Mongolian mustaches after that point.
Yeah, but then they started making them more like Vikings, and then they tried making them more like samurai. And I prefer my Klingons to be more like samurai personally. But
true. But anyway, did you get everything out you needed,
Yes,
Jacob?
I did.
Sorry. The two Trekkers in here are just going to dominate
it's
this
fine.
Oh, you prefer the term Trekker to Trekkie. That's not good.
It sounds more proactive. I'm okay with both names. I just like Trekker because it sounds more proactive.
Yeah, I don't actually care one way or the other. I just find it funny that there is actually an argument as to what the actual term is for Star Trek fans.
I think Trekkie is the more common one.
It is now, but I know Trekker was the one that it started with, so...
I mean, there's two documentaries about Star Trek fandom called Trekkie, so it's hard to argue with that one.
But anyway, I actually did enjoy this episode. Granted, I was not as like Nate. I wasn't a big fan of Voyager at the time, and there was a lot of this stuff. Like, but Rutherford says they're going for the deep cuts. I was like, yeah, they are, because I'm gonna have to look some of this up, because I don't know who the clown is, or I didn't know who the Irish guy was either. And I was going, I don't remember these two guys. I remember Chaotica, because how can you forget Chaotica? But I remembered the macrovirus. I love the fact that when the Borg nanite tries to assimilate the macrovirus, it grows big. It's like, I hate that logic, but it makes sense.
True.
Especially considering that's the same logic that happened when the nanites tried to assimilate the Borg's, the Doctor's mobile emitter from the 29th century, and suddenly it was all future Borg technology, which made no sense whatsoever.
Voyager for you. Voyager was wacky at points, but it did have a handful of really good characters.
Yeah.
Like the Doctor, the holographic Doctor. I thought that was a great idea, and I actually think 7 of 9 is a great character. It's not just because she looks good in the cat suit.
You're a fan of the Borg Barbie?
Yes, because she's a really interesting character, and
Yes.
it's not just
She
the
was-
cat suit.
She was a lot more interesting than Kess was.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I did not realize until I was doing the research for this, that the Kess's last episode and 7 of 9's first episode where she's not completely Borgified was the same episode.
Yep.
It's like you really were switching one character out for the other and did not hide it. But yeah, this was Voyager, like I said, was not my favorite show. It's not one I ever wanted to go back and do a lot of rewatch, though. I do kind of want to go back and watch the Two-Vix episode again now.
I'm a little curious about that. I haven't seen that one in a long time.
Yeah. I did find it interesting, despite the fact it's been a long time. The minute I saw the pink orchid, I remembered, oh yeah, that's how that happened. Wow, I didn't even think about that until prior to this, especially since I'm watching this at 5:15 in the morning. Because I got up early because I didn't want to be. Because I had to learn with this show not to be spoiled, because the internet will not shut up about these shows. But yeah, I this was a fun one. You want to go ahead and talk about the next one?
Yeah,
sure.
Let's do it.
Okay. The next episode, I have no bones, yet I must flee. Was first aired on September 7th, 2023, directed by Megan Lloyd and written by Aaron Burdett. In this episode, Mariner tries to get demoted, Rutherford tries to get promoted, and Boimler makes a big move. The cast list is the same for both episodes, so going straight into the trivia. The title of this episode comes from the Hugo Award-winning science fiction short story I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison. Though I immediately, upon seeing this title, remembered the TOS episode, The Earth is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky.
Yeah, for the Earth is hollow, and for the Earth is hollow and I have touched the sky. Yeah,
which is
a very
one of the
long
weirdest,
title.
longest titles in Star Trek history.
Yeah, it is, and I'm glad you brought that up. The connection is also Trek based because Harlan Ellison did write for TOS.
City on the Edge of Forever.
Yeah, he wrote the first draft.
The first draft.
of
Yeah,
City on the Edge of Forever. It got rewritten, and he got
yeah.
Harlan Ellison. Jacob
hates that episode.
It famously was an incredibly talented writer who hated everybody and everything. He was incredibly difficult to work with, but he was too talented to ignore. And he hated the revisions that were made to his script. And he basically said, take my name off of it.
And yet I think his name is still on it.
I think it is, but some of the other ones he did, they had to make a pseudonym for him because he famously got angry.
Admittedly, it's been a long time since I saw the pre remaster version of City on the Edge of Forever. And then on that one it may not, but I think on the re-release they did put his name on it. So either way.
Yeah. He also started the first revival of Twilight Zone in the 80s.
Yes. This is the second episode with the mysterious probe, this time destroying a ship of Romulans.
Yes.
The Cerritos crew mentions how humans frequently get trapped in menageries. In 2254, of course, Captain Christopher Pike was trapped on Talos 4 in the original series episode first pilot episode for all of Star Trek, The Cage, which was recounted during Spock's court-martial in the original series episode two-parter, The Menagerie. Later in 2269, the crews of the USS Ariel and the USS Enterprise were trapped in a Lactrin zoo in the animated series episode, The Eye of the Beholder, which is now canon. While doing their exercises, Shax and Ransom are both wearing the same workout outfits that Beverly Crusher and Deanna Troi wore in the Next Generation episodes The Price. These outfits were previously also seamed by unnamed crew members in the season 2 episode Wedge Dutch.
Yeah, they brought those back because that scene's gotten a bit memeified the last few years.
The device that Rutherford is tinkering with at the end of the episode is a miniature tractor beam, which was previously worked on by Wesley Crusher in the Next Generation episode, The Naked Now. Rutherford saying Livick every time Livick beats him might be a reference to Seinfeld saying Newman in Seinfeld.
A show I never liked as a kid.
I never watched it, so. The new Romulan ship we see at the beginning of the episode is based on one of Andrew Probert's early designs for the Romulan warbird he did for TNG. The Romulan torture chair from the Next Generation episode The Mind's Eye is seen here with a Riemann in it from Star Trek Nemesis. Among Boimler's personal effects, we see his plaque for the Boimler effect from the episode Temporal Edict, a Mirror Universe Archer action figure based on Archer from the Enterprise episode In a Mirror Darkly, a movie era Spock action figure, a First Contact Data action figure, the Tom Paris commemorative plate from the episode We'll Always Have Tom Paris, a commemorative Cerritos plate, a Stargazer model, Spock's visor from the original series episode Is There in Truth No Beauty, the Captain Freeman Day banner, and the Commander Una recruitment poster from the Strange New World episode Those Old Scientists.
Yes.
In the menagerie, we can see a City Alpha eel from Wrath of Khan, a normal, regular koala, just hanging around. A furry unicorn dog from the original series episode The Enemy Within, a random unicorn snake, an Aldebaran serpent that Q pretended to be in Hide and Q, and of course, Moopsy.
Moopsy.
One of the most reused sci-fi props in all of Hollywood is here being called the Tucker Tubes. This prop was rentable by the company Modern Props, which closed down in 2020. Their description for the prop listed it as a Modern Props designed and fabricated dual medical lab and control generator with rotating neon lights inside of an acrylic tube, light controlled panel with knobs and buttons. This was seen in...
You have a couple of those? Of course you do.
Of course. It was first seen in Wrath of Khan and The Final Frontier, along with the Next Generation episodes Data Lore, Suddenly Human and the Quality of Life, the Voyager episodes Respect and Inside Man, and the Enterprise episode Cold Station 12. It also appeared in films such as Austin Powers, Airplane 2, The Last Starfighter, The Incredible Hulk TV show, the Flash 96 TV show, and many, many others, because it was everywhere. But apparently, if it's going to be anywhere anymore, someone's going to have to make it again because that company went out of business. So, what are your thoughts on this episode, Nate?
I'm double checking something here.
That's worrisome.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I'm like, yes. I was like, did they name the tubes after Tucker from Enterprise?
Yes, that's who it's supposed to be named after in this episode.
Instead of Jeffrey's tube, it's the Tucker
tubes.
It's the Tucker tubes because the Jeffries tubes were named after Matt Jeffries.
Matt Jeffries, the original
one of the designers on
Enterprise.
TOS. Yeah. So
and TNG, he worked on both shows.
Oh, TNG, yeah. So anyway, I was like, oh, we're calling back to Enterprise. That's an interesting because that was a running gag because they would change the names slightly.
Yeah.
After that. So this is where we get a lot more of the character conflict. Oh, well, first, actually, I really want to talk about how darn funny that first scene was on the Romulus ship. This is great.
Exaggeration of Romulus.
Yeah, because I'm like they're all just plotting against each other and trying to stab each other in the back, and they're like, "Ha ha!" I was like, "I'm going to betray you." No, I am going to betray you. I got here because I killed my first captain, and like they just kept going back and forth. And there was that line about how. I was like, what was it? Oh, I wrote it down. Let me make sure I get it. It's like, you wouldn't know a scheme from a conspiracy. Because they're like, I have a scheme. I am hatching a scheme. Now I am hatching a scheme.
I think the scheme and the conspiracy are both Star Trek episodes involving Romulans.
No, conspiracy was the weird bug.
Oh, yes, that was the weird bugs. That was technically the precursor to the Borg.
maybe.
Well, I mean, that was supposed to be the big thing, and then they said this doesn't work, guys, with these
Yeah,
weird
it
space
doesn't.
bugs
It does.
that have
It
never
doesn't
come
work.
back. So
So I just want
let's
to
make
say,
another
as
one
a-
based off the Cybermen from Doctor Who.
right. I just want to say, as a one-off scene with these one-off characters, that made me chuckle quite a bit, just because they got it down. Like, it was a very dead-on caricature. How conniving they all are.
Mhm.
But anyway, the main thing in this one is the character conflict. And I have to give them credit. They're figuring out how to not just go for the jokes, they're making a meaningful story out of this. It's a ridiculous story, because it's the opposite of what you would expect people to do. It's like, I don't want to be promoted. I want you to demote me right now. That sort of, like, it's the complete opposite. And they use it to create conflict. And the one guy, who's the one guy who doesn't get promoted?
That's Rutherford, and
Rutherford.
he's actually like they say it in this episode how he's had to turn down promotions 3 or 4 times to stay with the group.
Oh, that was hilarious.
But the thing is, yeah, I can see how he would have earned those promotions as many times as he's been the one who saved the ship.
Well, and then that was the joke there, because all he had to do was ask for it.
Yeah,
because he's already done things to be impressive, and then it's just like, oh, you want it? Here you go. You know? So that was funny, because he's always trying to do these things like the slightest of improvements, because that's what engineers do. You got to do something impressive, So
Well,
I thought that actually worked. I thought that was pretty funny.
The thing about Rutherford, and I'm just telling you this because I know you hadn't seen the rest of it, is he's probably like the smartest member of the crew, and he really should be farther along, but because of things that happened to him, we saw in season 3, he's kind of been stuck, but he likes where he is now. So
right,
and plus, he's probably my favorite character from Lower Decks.
He's, I will admit, out of these 2 episodes, I think he's probably the most endearing out of all of them, because he feels so authentic. Like, you can tell that he's all about being as loyal to his friends as he can. Although I will admit, the Orion girl had a really standout scene in this one where she pulls rank.
Yes.
Oh, that was great.
To tell us, like, I order you right now to still be friends with me, and we're still gonna hang out and talk about science. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I just did my first order." I'm like, "Okay, that was endearing.
Good.
It was
Tindy
funny, but it was endearing."
Tindy's been my favorite character since this show started, and the fact that she may have a darker past,
which is kind of funny,
is hilarious.
Right?
She is the mistress of the winter constellations. Whatever that means.
Whatever that means. So, and then the setup that they do where, the first, like I said, Mariner gets rightfully dressed down in this, because you would think, again, the most obvious thing would be, you're terrible. We're not letting you get promoted. But then what's the first officer's name again?
Ransom
figures like, no, I see what you're doing. You manipulate your first officers so that you can keep getting your way. I'm not going to let you do that to me. Now, obviously, he's doing it because he's a borderline Zap Brannigan, but at the same time, he actually makes sense to me. I was like, you know what? I could see why you would say, no, I'm not going to get pushed around by you. I'm going to promote you whether you want to be promoted or not, and I'm not going to put up with your attempts at insubordination to get demoted, which again creates that that humorous reversal where you would think, no, he would actually have zero tolerance for this and just be done with it. Because he's like, no, I'm not letting you get away with this as I see what you're actually doing. And
there's a great subversive of what normally happens.
Yeah, and then, like I said, he just dresses her down. It's like, no, you need to stop this. I'm not going to get pushed around by you. And, tells her, it's like, you need to stop doing this. You're actually good at this. You need to stop refusing promotions. And I'm like, thank you. The characters like this need to get dressed down more often.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, you kind of get the feeling when you go look at when you look at how Mariner's been treated, like throughout the rest of the show, that up until this point she's just been shuffled around and no one's cared because she's the admiral's kid or she's the captain's kid, and like we get Ransom here, it's like it doesn't matter who you are, it's like you are good at this job and you deserve the promotion, and even if no one else is going to believe in you, I'm going to, because I'm not going to let you not believe in yourself.
Right.
I think to some degree she doesn't believe in herself. and that's why
Mhm.
she acts the way she does.
I would
Right.
agree with you in this thing. Yes.
Yeah. So I was grateful for that. Well, let's talk about the tiny elephant in the room.
Moopsy.
Oopsie. Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
This is a
I have
little bit of a
learned- I have discovered what Moopsy translates into in English. Is I have become death, destroyer of worlds.
All right. This is becoming a little bit of a tired trope at this point.
I don't care. It's like this is
It's like
hilarious.
we get it. The
to
cute
me.
thing is the monster.
Yes.
Yes.
I've seen this too many times now for me to take it seriously anymore. And it's a bone vampire.
Yeah.
It makes about as much sense as the salt vampire from Mantrap. So
Yeah, except that makes a little bit more sense because salt is in humanoid bodies and it is vital for survival.
yeah. But this is
So
like literally somehow drinking your bones out of your body. It's like
I think I get it. It's more just for the humor of it, and I'm like, okay, if they say it wants the bone marrow, I can go along with that, But I don't know how it drinks your bones, but like I said, it's just meant to be funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, but again, it's the tiny cute thing is really the monster. I'm like,
yeah.
whatever, guys. So the Moopsy was the part of the episode that I was the least impressed by because it's like I said, it's a tired trope at this point.
I don't know. It caught me off guard. This
Yes.
Moopsy, and granted, it's going all the way back to the killer rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yes.
Right.
And that's literally what I was thinking of the whole time. But I was watching it going, okay, this is funny to watch. It's like this cute little thing is chasing them and they're running scared for their lives. I find this hilarious and I can't stop laughing.
It's a good plot
Yeah.
device. I
Mhm.
will
Agreed.
say that the concept I'm pretty nonplussed with because it's just not that interesting because I've seen it so many times now.
Yeah.
But in the context of the story of this episode, Moopsy works.
I admittedly was half expecting by the end of this for Ensign Gary to get his bones drank because
I
he
was
had
expecting
so
him-
much. He had so much red shirt energy.
Yes.
I was expecting him to be the one who released the thing.
I thought Mariner had done it.
Honestly, for a bit, I was thinking Mariner did it, but then even before they started blaming her, I was thinking Mariner is doing some stupid stuff and would do some stupid stuff to try to get demoted like that, but she's not the kind of person to release Moopsy.
Yeah, I as someone who didn't necessarily like Mariner in the crossover, and I've heard a lot of complaints about Mariner in the past, and watching these two episodes, even I didn't think, no, she wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's not
She
her
would
character.
never. She might be one of the worst officers in Starfleet, but even she wouldn't do
Yeah,
that.
she's better than that. She's
Yeah.
I could see Boimler doing it by accident far faster than her doing
because
it on
because the joke with him is he's incompetent.
Yeah,
Right.
That's true.
but
Well, he's well-meaning but incompetent.
yeah,
Yeah.
Whereas Mariner is
Mariner's
insubordinate.
Mariner's just insubordinate, but she's too good at actually being a good Starfleet officer to actually do that kind of mess. She's too much of a survivor.
Right.
So,
Right. But then I did like the little bit of a twist where it was the two humans who were there
Yeah,
in
that
the
was- that was
menagerie
good.
already because they wanted to stay.
Yeah, because the way they were setting it up, and it was like, oh, it's probably the ensign, the new guy. He's like, oh,
Well-
he makes that little tirade about like how this and this and this and be like against humans, and it was like,
Mhm.
oh, it's him. They turn around,
Yeah,
and it was like,
well,
oh,
because-
it's the captured
because-
humans.
Because my thought process was he would release the thing so that he can look like the hero.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
well, it wouldn't be the first time something like that's happened on the show. So yeah,
Yeah. So I give them credit. They surprised me a little bit with that. I've noticed a bit of a pattern with these two episodes, and I don't know if this is true of the entire show. and they're at least self-aware enough to kind of comment on it, which is they're clearly borrowing from stuff that's already been done before. Like the previous episode in particular, they just flat out call it out. And so in this one, they're franchise savvy enough to point out, it's like, oh yeah, it's never humans in these things or whatever, you know, and then it ends up being
that's
that.
kind of Mariner and Boimler's thing, is that they're both know enough Starfleet history that they pretty much know the show. They've watched the show before, basically. So
it's like having characters who are actually genre savvy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And at first, when I was first watching this, I thought that's going to get old quickly, that they already know all this stuff and yet still will somehow fall into the same problems, or not even knowing how these things go will actually help them. I kept thinking that's how this would go, and it'd get annoying after a while. But honestly, it doesn't mess with me that much. So I don't know. The writing has been very good on this show so far, in my opinion. But
I would say definitely with this episode, because like you said, Nate, like Mariner does get dressed down. Be like, it's not like it's kind of just pushed to the side or whatever. She kind of gets away with it in some capacities. This one be like Ranson, just more like, no, I'm not gonna let you do this. Be like, you are not gonna do this anymore. Yeah. And it's just like, oh my gosh. Because I kept thinking when the crossover happened, my thought that Pike was gonna be one dressing her down, and she's going to do something in order to do something in order to do this. I kept
telling you that wasn't going to happen. But
yeah,
I think the Strange New Worlds characters were just more flabbergasted than anything else with them.
It's like, this is what the Federation looks like in 200 years, or however many years. I don't know. It's just I've enjoyed this show, and I love how when you watch other like adult comedies like The Simpsons or Futurama or something like that. Granted, Futurama actually does this too. The Family Guy is really the one I'm thinking of that doesn't really do this, is the fact that this show has character growth. And so many other shows do not. They're just making fun of stuff, and by the end of the episode, everything's reversed and back the way normal. And this was like, no, they're actually still, everything is in continuity, and they're keeping it up together. And they're actually, the Mariner and Boimler, Rutherford and Tendi that we had in episode 1 for Second Contact, and the characters we have at the end of I Have No Bones Yet I Must Flee, they're the same characters, but they've grown so much from there. Growth has been so well done. And even with all I hate to say the secondary characters because they're the actual senior crew of the ship, but even those characters have all grown, and I appreciate that. And that's kind of what I've loved about this show is, it's a loving parody. It loves Star Trek, and it's doing a good job of parodying it in universe, but it knows enough. It's like, okay, we can't be funny here. We've got to actually tell a serious bit here, and we actually can have character growth. And we've had so much good of that so far in this show, which surprises me to this day. I am still surprised that this show is not like Rick and Morty, like I was afraid it was going to be.
Yeah. So I will admit, I'm guessing we're kind of winding down here. Yeah. We've been going on for a little longer than I was expecting. I think I'm actually sold enough on the show that I think I will go back to season 1 and give it a watch. What should I expect going all the way back to that, though?
First season's going to be a little bit more joke heavy. I'll give you that warning. But as things are going forward, they're different. You're going to start seeing like different things. I mean, season 2 and 3 is all during 1 year, so I mean, there's not as much character growth. You'll understand why I was actually mad at the show as a Texan by the end of season 3.
Yeah.
There's a reason the last episode is called The Stars at Night, and I was like, oh, you just made us the bad guys. But anyway, I think you'll enjoy it. It's fun. Just take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, it's going to be goofy, but enjoy it. Just enjoy what's there.
Exactly. Well, I will say this, generally speaking, it's a trend with Star Trek shows. First season's rough, unless you're TOS. We're it with TOS.
TOS
seasons.
is weird. and
TOS
that
is one some of the
first
best
season
episodes.
is the best
but-
season.
Yeah, but like TNG season 1's rough. DS9 a little rough because they're still trying to figure themselves
Yeah.
out.
Voyager didn't know what they were doing.
Voyager didn't know what they were doing, and and the first
Discovery
season of
left that
Enterprise,
better.
first 2 seasons of Enterprise were rough.
Actually, I have gone back and watched Enterprise, and that show's a lot better than I think I gave it credit for originally. But either way,
Yeah, at this point, we're just boring poor Jacob to death because he's just like,
no,
who?
no.
Why? It's like he's just like, Drew, why did you bring the other Star Trek nerd on here?
hey, in Jacob's defense, he actually enjoys the movies. He's watched all the movies.
I thoroughly enjoy the films.
And I think the
That's
more
what
I
you're
the
about.
more I've made him watch Star Trek, the more I think he's actually interested in watching the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's a lot, though.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that
It is
that
a
is the
lot.
fair warning.
30.
850 total stories.
Well, how many years has it been? Like it's been.
We are coming up on we're on 57 today.
Yeah, exactly.
Or is it, yeah, 57 today
57.
as of this recording.
Wow, that is. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, but you're still talking like, say, there's what?
I mean,
How
there's
many
huge
movies now?
gaps.
There's about 12 movies. There's a dozen
There's
movies.
13 movies.
13 movies.
There
Yeah, but then you
is-
have like okay, I'm trying to do the math in my head. Just with the pre-new stuff, you're looking at
5
about
TV shows.
28 seasons of television.
Pretty much. And to do it right, you have to watch like the last 2 seasons of TNG with the first 2 seasons of Deep Space Nine, and the last 5 seasons of Deep Space Nine with the first 5 seasons of Voyager. To do it right.
Yeah, because that
So
was
it's gonna
back
get
when
confusing.
they took spin-offs seriously. So whatever was the previous show, they would dovetail them into the new show.
Yeah.
So like Picard is in the first episode of DS9, and when Voyager starts,
They actually start
they're
at, Deep
at
Space
the
Nine.
DS9 station, and Quark makes a cameo. And
Yeah.
the only one they broke that from was Enterprise, but Enterprise is a prequel.
Right. And you've seen First Contact, so you already know the pre-stuff
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yeah, so
Though we don't wanna
it's-
get
it-
into
it's
my
a
whole-
lot of it's a lot of stuff. You now when you get to the newer stuff, you have the advantage of shorter seasons. But
yeah.
but
You're
it's-
everything before the big reboots is like 24 episode seasons.
yeah, but
Old television.
but good luck trying to get through some of the newer stuff.
Original series season 3, yeah.
No. I'm talking about
TNG season 1.
No, I'm talking about. I'm talking about
Oh, you
like
mean the reboot stuff?
Discovery.
Discovery.
and-
Just skip to season 2 of Discovery, just so you can find out how Anson Mount's story went there. Really, just
Yeah.
watch season 2 of Discovery and then Strange New Worlds. That's all you got to watch of Discovery. I have opinions.
No.
We all have opinions.
Let's just say I'm not shedding a tear that this is going to be Discovery's final season. Anyway,
I'm
guys,
not-
we need to go ahead and end it here.
Yes.
Nathan, you want to go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you?
Oh my gosh, I gotta do my shameless self-promotion again? What?
Yeah, because technically this is a separate episode.
I know it is. It's recorded on the same night, but whatever. Anyway, so yes, I am the host and curator of the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through tokusatsu. If you enjoy hearing me wax analytical and academically about kaiju, definitely check that one out. And you get to listen to more of my intrepid producer who miraculously survived the infamous war in space, but won't tell me how. Actually, he tried to tell me how, and I gave up trying.
I blame the space ducks.
The space
Blame the
ducks.
space ducks.
I blame the space ducks. That needs to go on a T-shirt, and Jimmy would wear it proudly. Anyway, so yeah, definitely give that one. Definitely give that one a listen. I am also the host of Henshin Men, a podcast about the appreciation of Japanese superheroes and their high-flying, high-kicking adventures. Drew has been a temporary co-host on there to help me finish off the coverage of the original Kamen Rider. That one's a television podcast. It's been mostly focused on Kamen Rider, but we've branched out and done a few other things. But if Henshin Men is a sprint, my other podcast, because yes, I have too many, the Power Trip, a journey through the Power Rangers franchise. That is a marathon. Drew has been on an episode that I have been assured will be out very, very soon. In fact, by the time this episode comes out, it might already be out. You came up for Gekiso Sentai Car Ranger,
Yes.
which infamously became Power Rangers Turbo.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We
And
don't talk about Turbo.
we
No,
don't talk
no,
about
no.
Turbo. No.
I got an
And I'm-
appreciation for at least the second half of Turbo, but
And I am also one of the cast members for Scyther Inc. Productions, which does fan-produced audio dramas, one of which was Star Trek, I might add. I haven't listened to that one yet, but one of their earliest ones was a Star Trek show. You can listen to that one on YouTube. But I play Rito Bandora or Rito Revolta, whichever name you prefer, who may or may not have been my roommate at one point or another. You should know he called up when you guys were on the show once.
yeah, I'm surprised you even let him in the room.
No, he called in on the phone, sir.
That's right, he did.
But anyway,
I'm surprised you let him be your roommate.
Well, sometimes
But then I guess if he
sacrifices
pays
must
the
be
rent
made.
on time.
Yeah, that too. But anyway, so I play him on Power Rangers Aero Drama, and then to my eternal shock, of all people, I also voice Deadpool, the Merc with a Mouth, on the X-Men, the audio drama. Although so far I've only been a post-credit gag. But I've been told Deadpool will come back in a future season. I just don't know exactly when that's going to be. And then if you want to, I'm an author. So if you want to check out my writings, go to nathanjsmarchand.com, where you can learn about my books and see a blog that is in desperate need of being updated. And, the podcast website is monsterislandfilmvault.com. I'm also the editor for Kaiju Ramen Magazine. So check out kaijuramenmedia.com. I'm also one of their staff writers. Issue 10 is coming out soon with a holographic cover featuring artwork. I forget the artist's name, but he did a rendition of the original concept art version of King Ghidorah, who is not golden. He had a wild kind of rainbow color scheme, and it's one of the best looking covers we've ever done. I think by the time this episode is out, issue 10 should be published, so that will be exciting. I do a lot of stuff, so you can follow me on all the different socials for the podcast, and for myself, just go to the websites to get links to everything. I think I've covered everything as quickly as I can because we need to wrap things up.
Yes.
All right. We have anything else before we need to get out of here?
Nope.
So even though I saw what some of the names of the next episodes are on a post, I can't find that list anymore. So I can't tell you what the name of our next Lower Decks episode is, but guarantee you we will be recording an episode and reviewing it on that. So join us next time for that. In the meantime, this has been Drew.
This is Jacob.
And Nathan.
And we'll catch you in the next
And
stream.
Jimmy.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot Jimmy. Shame on me. Anyway. Click the right things over here. I know you're typing, please.
You can follow Jacob on his Facebook at Jacob B. Heron. His Facebook page, Jacob's Daily Art Corner, where he tries to draw each and every day.
I try.
His Instagram at Jacob B. Heron. His Twitter at Jacob Heron. And his letterboxd at Jacob Heron. You can find Drew on Facebook at Drew Dodgen. His Facebook page, Drew's Photobin, to see his photography. His letterboxd page at GGeorge759. His Twitter at GGeorge759. And Instagram at Drew Dodgen. You can like us on Facebook at the Cellcast Podcast, on Twitch at the Cellcast Gaming, on YouTube at Cellcast, on Twitter at cast_cell. The Cellcast can be found at Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere else fine podcasts are downloaded from. Please rate and review us where you found us, and also on Podchaser. Email us at thecellcastpodcast@gmail.com. The Cellcast is a proud member of both the Pop Americana and Culture Box media networks. For more information, please see the link in the description. Our theme song is Drop and Roll by Silent Partner. And remember, that's Cell with a single L.
all gonna die.
I'm keeping my bones.